Hey, welcome to another Technology Paul. Today we're going to be talking about GPS trackers, specifically the GeoZilla GPS Tracker, which I'll review for you. Now, why are we talking about GPS trackers anyways? Well, as you know, they've become pretty popular these days, particularly Bluetooth trackers. The company that originally made little electronic trackers popular is Tile. They've been making Bluetooth trackers for years. I've used them in the past and I still have a couple of Tile trackers. I did a video on the Tile Mate trackers a while back, but that was before Apple's AirTags came to the market. Apple's AirTags have made Bluetooth trackers insanely popular. I've got a few of those too. There are millions of AirTags floating around and people are using them to track everything from their keys to their bags to their children. And speaking of tracking children, you're not technically supposed to track people with these Bluetooth trackers. Obviously you can, but it's discouraged. Plus it has some downsides as well. It relies on a Bluetooth signal, and in Apple's case, it uses the millions of other iPhones in the Find My network of connected devices to help you find your tracker. But what happens if the tracker is not within Bluetooth range or within range of the Find My network in Apple's case? And sometimes you don't want to wait for the tracker to pick up a signal from some random passerby. You want a live signal, or as live as it possibly can be. That's where cellular connected GPS devices come in handy. They have their own connection to the cellular network and therefore are theoretically more reliable. Naturally, that comes at the cost of paying for network access, but it might be worth it, particularly if you're a concerned parent who wants to know the whereabouts of your child. And that's where we're at. Our son will soon be old enough to start school, and perhaps in the next year or two will even walk to and from school on his own. Now here's the thing. It's true that when I was a kid, nobody had GPS trackers, so one could argue that it's really not that necessary. But hey, we're in a technological age, and peace of mind is easy to implement. And of course I can't hand a cell phone to our kid. He's still much too young for that. That's the somewhat obvious solution for teenagers, of course. A phone can be tracked pretty reliably. Apple also has a solution where you can give your kid a cellular Apple Watch, but it's pretty expensive and it's somewhat of a distraction for not only our kid, but potentially others. And it's a prime target to get stolen if an older kid or a bully decides they want it. That's why these little GPS trackers exist. They're small, discreet, and kind of boring. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Now, when researching these types of devices, there at first seem to be quite a few options, but ultimately there's one pretty big name in the industry, a company called AngelSense, which from the looks of it makes a great device and service, but is super expensive in terms of their service plan. In fact, they advertise that you get the device for free, but the service plan is around $500 a year. There were a few other options that weren't available in Canada. Then ultimately I found a cheaper competitor called GeoZilla. The GeoZilla Tracker is available on Amazon and it came with a 1-year service contract, all for about $240. So about half of what the AngelSense would cost. So the question is, how well does it work? First, I unboxed the tracker. It's quite small, maybe a little bigger than an AirTag, but it's still nice and compact. It comes with a few accessories, such as a pouch that you can attach to a belt, a hard case with a carabiner that you could attach to a belt loop, backpack, or whatever, and a lanyard. In terms of putting this on a kid, I'm not sure how useful the lanyard is, as lanyards and kids don't really mix. Kids move around a lot, they climb things. It's definitely liable to get caught on something, or if the kid finds it annoying, they'll just take it off. The soft pouch, oddly enough, isn't really big enough to fit the tracker in. Technically it goes in, but it's a tight squeeze. However, the hard case seems to be the most useful. It protects the tracker well and it clips to a belt loop nicely. Another wrinkle that I ran into with the GeoZilla was that the service plan I bought with the tracker wasn't already activated out of the box, and the app was trying to get me to buy a new plan. There wasn't any way to redeem my 1-year service plan except for reaching out to support and asking them to activate it. Luckily, they responded in less than 24 hours and did get it going. but just watch out for that if you're going to get this tracker. Now, to test this tracker out, we took it on vacation with us. We spent a few days in Vancouver, and I had one particular event in mind where a GPS tracker would be useful. Annually, Vancouver has a festival called the Celebration of Light. It's a huge fireworks competition where competing countries put on a show in the bay. And each night there's about 100,000 people who show up to watch the show. As you can imagine, you want to keep a close eye on your kids in these circumstances. Losing track of your child in a huge crowd like this is very distressing. And so naturally, it'd be good to have a backup plan where you could see a live location of a tracker that's on your child. Well, I discovered that the tracker may not be as useful in these situations as I thought. And that's because when you get 100,000 people in one area, the cellular network infrastructure becomes bottlenecked and slow. Maybe you've been in this situation before. Essentially, using the internet or any kind of data application on your phone becomes tediously slow. I had a hard time pulling up the app on my phone, loading the map data, and I couldn't get a refreshed GPS location of the tracker, except maybe every 20 minutes or so it would finally update. I figured that both my phone and the tracker were having trouble connecting to the nearby towers to send and receive data. What I learned here is that in a large crowd, a Bluetooth tracker might be a better option since it connects directly to your phone rather than going through the internet. The range is smaller, but the location would refresh more frequently. You need to have a network in the local area that isn't overloaded in order for the cellular tracker to work properly. This means that events like the Celebration of Lights or fairgrounds, concerts, and sporting events might have that similar issue. This is ironic because these are the exact situations where you would ideally have access to a tracker like this. That said, I'm sure in a place like Disneyland or similar, where it's the norm to have thousands upon thousands of people, it would work much better. They would have the local infrastructure to support those crowds, and therefore your internet connection would be a lot better. Now, just to make sure it was indeed the massive crowds that was causing my problems, I tried out the tracker the next day as well. I was able to pull up the map and see the recently tagged location of the GPS tracker. Now, in the case of the GeoZilla, it still isn't a live location. You basically get a new location ping every 2 to 3 minutes. In this example, we were on a water taxi. You can see the live location of my phone moving along the route, while the GPS tracker pings its location every couple of minutes, updating the pin to move closer to my location. So all in all, I have a few thoughts. Firstly, the GPS tracker from GeoZilla provided essentially the same functionality you can get with Apple's Find My network, which can be used to track the location of loved ones who have an iPhone or an Apple Watch. You get semi-live location tracking refreshed every few minutes. Generally, it's going to work better than AirTags because by using the cellular network, you get a much broader range of tracking and you're not relying on a mesh network of Bluetooth devices from other users. Apple's AirTags are quite versatile because of that Find My network, where essentially other people's phones and AirTags anonymously and securely interact with the AirTag, meaning it can extend the range far beyond normal Bluetooth. But that won't help you if you're in the countryside or a sparsely populated area, for example. If you're trying to track something in a field or a large park or something like that, you would have a tough time doing that with an AirTag. You would only ever get a location update if someone who has an iPhone were to pass by the AirTag so that it could securely transmit its location. That might not happen for hours or even days in some instances. But with the cellular tracker like GeoZilla, you get that consistently refreshed location every couple of minutes, as long as it's in range of the cellular network. Obviously, cell networks don't extend everywhere, so there are limits to how far you can track this thing, but it's undoubtedly a step up from a Bluetooth tracker. You have to be willing to pay for it, of course. I think I'm paying around $100 a year for a service plan on this thing because any device that connects to the cell network has to pay a fee. This tracker in particular also has an SOS button. The idea being that you can tell your child that if they need help, they can press this button. It doesn't call the police or anything, just sends a message through the app. There's going to be some false presses from time to time though, which could also be a bit annoying, as kids are bound to lean against it or sit on it if it's attached to their pants or something. So this is kind of a good and bad feature. But while this tracker has some utility, in some cases something like an AirTag would be better, like in those large crowded events, for example. With an AirTag, you can get live guidance right to it if you're in range, and you can ping it to make a sound so that you can more easily find it. So there is some advantages there. But as I mentioned, AirTags aren't meant to be used for tracking people, and Apple puts some safeguards in place to ensure they aren't used in that manner. For example, Apple's AirTags will actually notify nearby iPhone users of its proximity, especially if it's not near the iPhone it was originally paired with, so as to prevent stalking. I get why AirTags do this, but cellular GPS trackers are more discreet and will not notify nearby phone users in the same way, which is best if you want to make sure that you know where the GPS tracker is, but others don't. The only other downside of the cellular tracker is that you do need to charge it every few days, unlike an AirTag, which you just need to change the battery about once a year. So I haven't found the perfect solution, but I think that this works pretty well overall. What do you think? Do you have a GPS tracker like this, or do you use AirTags for a similar purpose? What have you had success with, and are there better options out there? Let me know in the comments. If you found the video interesting, click that like button so that others can also find this content. And I do a lot of different reviews on technology as well as services. And so if you're into that type of thing, click subscribe to get more of my content as it comes out. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.